Africa Investor Today is proudly brought to you in association with Petro SA and Afrexim Bank. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Investor Today. It's Tuesday and we start with politics and economy. Today, the Angolan President José Eduardo dos Santos celebrated his 30 years in power amid delays over a new constitution. Following the death of Gabonese President Omar Bongo in June, dos Santos is now Africa's second longest-serving leader, behind Muammar Gaddafi of Libya. The 67-year-old president has been accused by opposition parties and rights groups of clinging to power and deliberately delaying presidential elections. The presidential polls have been put off this year until a new constitution outlining the electoral system is adopted. And Mozambican President Armando Guebuza and the two opposition candidates from Renamo and MDM have launched their campaigns for the October 28th presidential election this week. Guebuza has called on citizens who happen to support different political parties to avoid regarding each other as enemies. With that, we're going to take a short break. We come back with some banking and finance news up next.
Redefining energy means redefining life. At the Petroleum, Oil and Gas Corporation of South Africa, our commitment to greater innovation and greener fuels has made us pioneers in the field of gas-to-liquids technology. It has also earned us worldwide recognition for producing the cleanest fuels through environmentally friendly processes. That's how we've become the international leader in diesel technology. Through pure innovation, pure energy, pure brilliance.
And in banking and finance, South Africa's central bank will probably keep its benchmark interest rate unchanged tomorrow, prolonging a surge in the rand that threatens to undermine a recovery in the economy. Outgoing Reserve Bank Governor Tito Mboweni will leave the repurchase rate at 7%, according to the majority of the economists surveyed by Bloomberg. The rest expect the rate to be cut by half a percentage point. Mboweni is due to announce the decision after 3 p.m. in Pretoria. And in Nigeria, the central bank yesterday refuted reports that a position had been taken on the fate of the 14 banks whose books are currently being examined, stressing that the audit report on the banks would only be ready in 2 weeks' time. Based on the reports so far, there is a clear indication that the bulk of the problems have been effectively dealt with in the first audit. In Kenya, the living standards of communities in Western Province could be up for lift following plans by Equity Bank to stimulate rural entrepreneurship among them in order to address rampant poverty. The bank intends to achieve this through mobilizing 50 groups, each from the province's 24 constituencies, to benefit from training on entrepreneurial skills and financial management. The groups will also be considered for loans by the bank as part of its strategy to exploit the untapped potential for economic growth in the region. We're going to take another break. Companies and markets news up next.
Afrexim Bank is Africa's leading trade finance bank, an organization dedicated to promoting African trade through credit, risk-bearing and advisory services. We pride ourselves on having local presence throughout the continent and are committed to extending our award-winning trade and project finance programs to unlock private sector development continent-wide. We invite you to become a part of our vision for a strong Africa in a changing world. If you trade within Africa, contact us to support you.
And in some companies and markets news, South African companies MTN, Anglo American and SAB Miller have been identified by leading international brand consultancy Interbrand as up-and-coming global brands in a report on the top 100 world brands for this year. This report was based on identity, financial data and whether the brand can be found on at least 3 continents. Although MTN, Anglo and SAB Miller did not make it onto the top 100 list, they were identified as brands to watch out for. In Zimbabwe, Econet Wireless has announced that it will release its financial results for the half-year period to August before the end of this month. The market will be looking to see the impact on the business of the massive capital investment that has been going on at the company. The amount of money invested by Econet in its business during this period is expected to be well over $100 million, which is probably the largest investment by any company in any industry. The results will be the first results from the company in which all income was earned in US dollars, and probably the first such results by a major public listed company. Do stay with us. We have infrastructure news up next.
Africa Investor, the leading African investment magazine, is essential reading for investors in Africa, filled with the very latest in Pan-African investment and finance news. In addition, log on to africa-investor.com to find out more about our exciting capital market, infrastructure and tourism events, and our long-standing investable Africa Investor 100 Index series, which tracks over $600 billion of African equities. Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
In some infrastructure news, South African state power utility Eskom needs to invest billions of dollars in electricity transmission and distribution lines over the next decade. But reaching a 2012 target of universal access may be tough. Kanan Lakmiran, Managing Director at the Utilities System Operations and Planning Division, said Eskom estimates it will need to spend at least 300 billion rand over the next decade on power infrastructure. But lack of funding and proper skills make it difficult for the government to hook up all South Africans to the grid as planned by 2012, up from the 70% connected at the moment. And Benue State Governor Gabriel Suswam disclosed that the state government is currently raising a bond of about 13 billion naira to raise the bar of infrastructural development in the state. The governor said that Benue is urgently in need of such development, and he would do all that he could to move the state forward. And in closing, the African Development Bank approved a $175 million loan to finance the capacity expansion of the Guelb El Rime iron ore mine operations in Mauritania. The National Industrial and Mining Company Guelb 2 project seeks to develop an existing mine and building a new iron ore enrichment plant for the production of an additional 4 million tons of iron ore concentrates per year. And with that, we close this edition of Africa Investor Today. For more on these stories and more, log on to www.africa-investor.com. From us here at the Africa Investor team, goodbye. Africa Investor Today is proudly brought to you in association with Petro SA and Afrexim Bank.